frozen ones in the refrigerator, so I thawed them out right quick. I don't know what happened to them.
Oh.
Well, I guess the rest of the people will kind of trickle in as we get done socializing, but welcome everybody. You know, a funny thing that I heard on the news the other day was the BBC was celebrating the 400th anniversary of the King James Bible. I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing them to come out and actually even acknowledge the book exists. And but they said they wanted to qualify that by the celebration including the gay relationship between David and Jonathan. You know, that argument has been around for I don't know how many years, and it just seems to me in a country like England, where they have wonderful universities like Oxford and Cambridge, that they don't have someone to go over there and knock them on the head and say, no, your interpretation is wrong. There's no gay relationship between these two men. Just study the scripture properly. In fact, David went on to be married to Bathsheba, as we all know, and have a son, Solomon, and there was no gay relationship between him and his friend. But you know, the part that's really sad about it is that when they use words like the two men embraced, or they loved each other with all their heart, when they use words like that, it shows how sad relationships are in our country. That when you hear words like that, instantly you have to jump into something else besides just having a good, strong relationship between two people. So that's kind of sad. I wanted to show you, we're still having a little problem with our cable, so I have to have a computer up here. I wanted to show you a couple of new things on the website.
Hey, who's that?
All the recipes now will include pictures that I take as I'm going through them. As you recognize, this one that we did last week.
Oh, yeah.
This contains all of these steps. We'll have pictures in all the steps that I did. So I take pictures as I'm cooking in the kitchen out here. And the classroom now is being taped. So if you just click right here, this takes you over to the index. And I was having problems with the camera before, so I didn't get these first 2 weeks of January. But these will, just clicking on this will give you the week coordinating with the date there. And then I separated the speaker, so if you just want to listen to the speaker again too, you can do that.
Did you put his email on there as well?
Yes, if you go back to the whole thing there. Back to it through here. Yeah, if you go back to this is the classroom page, down at the bottom here, and you go over to guest speakers, click on there. They are right there. And the only thing they had was their web address. When you click on that, that'll open up. Now, one thing my wife and I try to do every once in a while, every couple of months, is these little mini vacations, just to get away for a couple of days. And one place she likes to go very much is up into Ojai. She used to have a horse up there. She had a thoroughbred horse that she did dressage with, and she kept that horse alive for 35 years. And you know, she was calling all over the world to get medicine for that horse. And I don't know what that figures out in human years. It's got to be over 100. So I just thought, well, you know, I'm not going to say anything, because if she uses that kind of ambition on me when that horse passes, I'm going to live to be 200. But anyways, we went up to Ojai, And we were staying at a little hotel called the Hummingbird Inn. And as you know, you go through the lobby, sometimes they have those racks of different places of people who are vendors and activities and all those different types of things. We came across this one that is a olive oil orchard where they actually package their own olive oil up there, and they offer a tour. So I said, well, heck, we gotta go on this. So we had to go winding up in the mountains there, these little dirt roads and all that. We got this really nice orchard up there, and people were very friendly. Once you found your way in, maybe that's the reason they were friendly. And I had a lot of people that come in that weren't so happy that they got lost or something. I don't know, but it was some. You had to drive over a stream and go up some one-way dirt roads. But once we were there, nice little farm. I actually passed around this brochure. Nice little farm up there. Guy's name is Ron. Him and his family has been in his family for, I think he said 28 years. They got 47 acres, 2,500 trees, a whole variety of different types of trees. Some of the really old trees, like the one right here to the right of the camera, was planted in the 1800s, and they have to use 20-foot ladders to get up there and pick the olives. But the shorter ones are only about 6 or 8 feet tall, and they've got, in fact, you'll see the ladder in the next picture that they use for the short ones. There's Mr. Ron, and that's the kind of bucket that they strap around them, and they go up the ladder, and they kind of milk the leaf. They just kind of put their hand around it, just like you know, if you worked on a farm, how you kind of strip the teat when you milk it. Well, I kind of do the same thing to the branch. They go right down the branch and pull it off, and most of the time they can do it. One with any degree of expertise can do it, and not get a lot of leaves and branches and everything, but get mostly just the berry itself. And he said they were just coming to the end of the period now where they had completed their harvesting of the olives. And then this gets dumped into one of these, they look like kind of like a milk carton type container. And once that's full, then they take it into the other room for processing. And their farm is on tiers, so they can't use machines. A lot of the olive picking today is done by machines. And but they have to contract it out and have people come in and actually pick all of theirs, because the machines won't travel along the tiers very well there. And it's actually, there's a lot of rocks and stuff like that. There's a couple of pictures I have that shows it. It's kind of rocky and cactus and stuff like that up in there. Okay, yeah. When I walked in there, this was sitting on there. I thought, oh, that's kind of rude. But because what it looks like, you know, is maybe a chunk of manure, or maybe at best compost. And it actually is. It is a type of compost. You saw that plastic barrel that he had around him? Well, once they run this through their processing, this is what's left. This is after the machine has, it's going to go through a variety of stages. I'll show you the machines, but it goes through a variety of stages. The first stage is it separates all of the leaves and branches and everything from the olives that's been picked. And then it goes down a hopper, and it goes over to a machine that has blades that cuts it all up, chops it all up, and separates it. And then it goes through a centrifuge that does more separation. And then it goes through a machine that will cause a mixing effect, which will turn it into a paste. And then that goes into another centrifuge, and then at high speeds, it forces the oils out. And I said, you know, somebody had to ask, well, don't you have an olive oil press? And they said, nobody uses olive oil presses anymore. Very few people in the world even use them anymore, because they're so labor intensive. What they do is they lay all the olives out on mats, and then the mats are stacked, then the stack of mats goes into the press, and then the press has to come down very, very slowly, and someone has to watch to make sure those mats don't slide out. And the reason it has to come down slow is because if you just went like that, well, everything would just go like that, and you'd have all this all over the wall. But if it goes down very, very slowly, then you can, they'll stay put while they get pressed and the oil comes out. And but with the centrifuge, it doesn't matter because they're just spun in there, and it creates these substrates of water and oil and materials, and then they're separated. Yeah.
What happens to the pits?
Well, when it goes through initially, there's a separator that separates the leaves and the branches, and then it goes into a machine that does the cutting. And the cutting separates the pit from the olive, and that is generally, when it goes through a screening machine, that will fall out. Now, there are particulate matter, depending on what stage you go through, that will stay with it. As with anything, when you try to, I mean, if you just take something off the floor that's wet and pick it up and wring it out, you're going to have little pieces of dust and dirt and stuff like that. So there's lots of filtering in the process as well. And they can also filter using traditional cellulose filters, or they can filter using another form of centrifuge. And the funny thing is, people who say, I don't want my oil filtered, generally they're referring to the cellulose filters. But they don't mind if it's centrifuge, so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
One lady said, because they asked him, well, what do you do with this stuff when you're done with this mass here? And he said, oh, it can be sold. There's a variety of different applications for it. You can sell it to industries that will take it and they will put chemical solvents with it to force more of the olive oil out. And then olive oil is used for industrial uses, because since they use the chemical process to extract it, it's not good for human consumption. But there's still a lot of other applications, such as soaps, like that it can still be used for. Okay, this is the beginning. This is the first part of the machine, and this here is that hopper that everything gets dropped into, and where the leaves and everything gets separated. And then it gets moved back to one of these. This is he called it a mixer, which causes it to be turned into a paste. Now, through this process down here, before it gets back here, is where all that separation is going to occur. And that chopping device that we were talking about that chops it up and separates the pit from it, that's between these two, this one and this one.
Quite an operation.
Yeah, he said they started off with a very small machine, and then they had to go to a larger one, and this is the third time they've upgraded. This is a relatively new machine. And just got it moving right along there. Now this is the actual last centrifuge. You can see the three mixers were up front here. This is the actual last centrifuge, so it gets pumped up here and